is Hannah Bondoc, full name Hannah Estrella Agut Bondoc, just to, really make sure that in case you didn't notice, I'm super Filipino, just to make sure that the people watching this Filipino anthology know that I am also I am one of you. I went to ODU. I was the ODU culture chair in 2018 or 2017, 2018, I should say. I majored in communications with a minor in marketing and sociology. So I think I'm not. I think I'm not dumb. I've done theater for a really long time. I've been doing it since 2009, and I currently, most of my performances are just kind of like improv with Push Comedy Theater, shout out, in Norfolk. So I'm really excited, but I haven't done like a play like in a really long time. So like I'm really excited to like get into that, especially with something that like a Filipino produced, acted, written thing. Like that's kind of really cool. So yeah. My dad lives in Nueva Ecija, although I don't know I really should look that up. In Nueva Ecija, I don't know if I think they do strictly speak like Tagalog. There's no like Ilocano or whatever the case, at least not to my knowledge anyway. I haven't heard my dad speak otherwise. My mom is, oh my God, I hope I get this right, is from Leyte. She is a Visayan. I know that for sure. She is definitely Visayan. And yeah, that's where they're from. Persistence, for sure. If there is one thing that has always stood out to me, it is about persistence. No matter like how many, because I mean, there's stuff. It's always hop in the air, like not necessarily like in a good way, but also like I mean tsunamis, like, and then there's also like it is a third world country, so like there are like areas where like like there are people that are kind of like in that almost like equivalent like financial bracket, and then there are areas where like I've literally seen where like the kids have like socks and duct tape for shoes, whether or not they come from like a bracket from ours or whether they come from like that kind of background. There's still always that like that joy, that energy, that like we're gonna make this work with whatever it is that we have, and that is so persistence is definitely like the number one word that I would think of when I think of like the Filipino spirit. I would also say warm. Big on community. I think that, and you can see that I would go as far as say like as far as like the Filipino forward churches, like the one that like I grew up in, like I grew up with like Life in His Word, where they are they are non-denominational, but they are also like national, but they're not like Filipinos only kind of, but like you can but there are a lot of like Filipinos in the church, but you can kind of see how like everyone takes care of each other. Like for example, like my mom, she's always been one thing. I don't even think she necessarily did it like intentionally, but like she's always been really big about taking care of each other. The way that when she moved over to the States, how like other people have taken care of her, whether they were Filipino or not. So community, persistence, and warmth, I think, are like the top three things when I think of the Filipino spirit. There isn't really like a whole lot of information out there as far as like Filipino mythology. I mean, I know there was recently like a show on Netflix that was about like Filipino monsters, and that was really cool. But I couldn't really like there's like the Mananang. I kind of just think of like just ASWANG as from what my understanding is, it does mean witch, but it also kind of pertains to like the general like supernatural monsters that like are out there. Like there's like the Manananggal, which like is kind of like what's on the poster, where it's like the top half of a woman. I would really love to know like because I know they're doing like more research now, like people are connecting more to like pre-colonial interpretations, because like if you because I remember like I kind of like doing my own research on it, and there's always like that disclaimer that like this is the information that we have, but just know that like a lot of this information is also colonized. So like kind of similar almost to how a lot of holidays in like, you know, in Europe and stuff, they were kind of put through like a Christian lens, so that like it's still like we the church still exist, but it's okay because nothing has changed for you, because your mythology is still there, it just looks different now. And so it's kind of an easier transfer for pagans to go to convert to Christianity, because as long as nothing has changed for them, then that's okay if their mythology has like a different look to it, as long as it's the same thing. So that's what I think of when I think of ASWANG. I think we do know information, but I would love to know more like pre-colonial information that might be available and is becoming more available as people are kind of delving more into like their roots and stuff. I don't, my family is kind of like, they're kind of religious, so like they don't really like believe in all of the like mythology and stuff. Although I do know that like my mom, she did like, there was like they had like a I would say almost like babysitter or like maid, or again she was not poor. Once upon a time she was not poor. And like they used to have like a maid or a caretaker or something that used to take care of them, and then like it was a very common sound to like it was like on the one of the upper floors or something, where like you could hear her like stirring her coffee or her mug or whatever it is that she was drinking like in her mug. And then after she had passed, they were like in the house where like she had, I'm assuming she had passed, and like they heard it, but she wasn't there anymore. So like they're freaking out. They're like, okay, we gotta go. And that's probably like the extent of like actual personal experience as far as like stories that I've heard like in my family about like just general supernatural like Filipino mythology and stuff.
I'm gonna add in a bonus question here because I'm curious what your thoughts are. But what do you think about there being so many stories of supernatural occurrences in the Philippines, and the impact that like Spanish colonization and white colonization has had on that? With
Yeah.
and such? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, for sure. I specifically like the Manananggal, because like this is from my understanding, right? The Manananggal is like the upper half of a woman, right? And what happens is that like how they eat unborn children. So like what they do is that like they go like under the floorboards, and then they use their like long like thin tongue to like slip through like the bamboo, and then they like eat the unborn child, and like which is horrific. But I do wonder, I have wondered before if that was their explanation for what about stillbirth. I would think, especially, and I think that would translate well for like in a Catholic sense, being that with demons and everything, that like you didn't like lose your child because of like natural causes. You lost your child because the devil took it from you, or a demon had taken it from you. So like I've always wondered if like that was where the translation had happened. I really need to like look up like other mythology, because like I really like don't know. Like it's not like super, I wouldn't say it's not super accessible information. There is information out there. I just don't know how true to the original material is it. You know what I mean? Because like like the information that I'm pulling from, like I can tell like it's old or it's like a love project that like someone else had made without a whole lot of resources. So I think it means what about the one word that I would think of is being adaptable, I would say, is kind of like the Filipino experience. Like for example, when I was younger, right, when I was little, I used to, you know how like kids that grow up on like the like border of like two different countries, they'll like mix the language. So that's what me and my sister ended up doing, but like it was more of like a game. This is according to my mom, right? So like with a grain of salt, as is with most stories about yourself that is handed down from other people when you are not a person yet. Like you are a person, but like is a baby really a person yet? So I and this was a game that we had played when I was like still like learning to talk, and they didn't quite know what to do with that, and they didn't really think that like they thought that I wasn't developing fast enough, so they bought me like in front of like like a school education board or something to like have me like professionally assessed to make sure that like, you know, that whether I need to be placed in like special education classes or not. Not because like I was dumb, but because like I wasn't speaking a language that everyone else knew how to speak apart from like my sister. So you know, and then there's like the whole like, you know, if you want your kids to succeed, you have to they have to speak the language of the country. So my mom like was speaking like exclusively like English. So once upon a time I didn't know how to speak the languages, just kind of like a little bit more mixed up there. But now I don't know that language, and it's a lot harder to learn. Like if your parents are speaking English, and everyone at school is speaking English, and everyone at church is speaking English, and everyone else is speaking English, like eventually like you do lose that. So like that is so that's what adaptation what is the word? Adaptability. There we go. So that's when I think of adaptability in its relation to the Filipino-American experience. But there's also like, you know, again, like making things like the more positive side of that coin is kind of, you know, making things work with what you have without necessarily like losing your identity, whether it be like, you know, still like cooking the meals that you're familiar with, or making sure that like the stories from your parents and their parents and so on and so forth, the like just kind of like living your life, but also still like kind of going about like the path that is suggested to you in your country. So that's what I think of when I think of like the Filipino-American experience, is like adaptability. I know that's like a long-winded answer that I hope that was cohesive, but yeah. I love like modern mythology take. I would think they would be doing exactly what Filipino-Americans like are already doing, where like still again holding on to their roots and taking care of their own, while kind of, you know, being a part of society, whatever that looks like to you, whether it be like, you know, setting up your own business, or like applying yourself like in the workforce or whatever. But at the same time, like, you know, you see other if they, you know, saw like other Filipinos, or if they saw or just, you know, people that, you know, look like us, I think they would also do their part in kind of taking care of their own, but also still kind of being like a part of society. And although as far as like ASWANG, like in the sense that we understand it, like as far as like mananangals or like witches or whatever. I think they would, you know, still be doing their thing, just kind of like on the down low, you know what I mean? I think that was what that would probably look like. Yeah. I think that the future that I'm hoping for, I think it's something that's kind of, we're already like manifesting as is. I would say, which gives me a lot of hope. There's a lot more, as far as like the second and third generations, the younger people within the Filipino community, they're leaning more into their roots. They're like making their own communities. Like the biggest example that I would think of is like FASA, where they did make their own club, they did make their own community, and then you'll even see that, and I see like members that I used to know kind of, you know, going about the throughout the previous years, because that was like back in like 2018. So like to see those same members kind of like grow in their own right after, like even after leaving the community that we had created at ODU, and still connecting with each other even after all these years. I think that is the future that I'm hoping for, where we have a big enough and palpable enough community that we can like comfortably like lean on each other, and not feel like we are alone. And I would love to see those communities also blossom, not just because like you see those kind of communities like that blossom more like in cities. I know it's a different story entirely, let's say like in like, I mean, I don't know what the Filipino community looks like in like Midwest Ohio or something like that, but I imagine it might, but in kind of more like rural areas where like communities like that are not as persistent, outside of online, I would love to see that blossom kind of just in more rural areas, so that they don't feel like they have to move or they have to be in a specific place in order to connect to community. Sometimes it's not even just like in the rural areas. Like my mom, as long as I've been growing up, we've always bought like a whole like box of pandesal when we visit our folks that are like kind of closer towards like the Boston area. And I kind of thought my mom was just being extra and just putting on the flex. I thought that was just my mom doing that. And then I realized, and then like more recently, I was like, when my sisters had went to like go visit them and kind of really actually like explore the area rather than just going to their house and then going back home, they're like, oh yeah, no, like it's almost like the South has moved up here, but they just have northern accents. So there's no Filipino bakeries here, there's no Filipino restaurants here, there's no like Filipino like anything up here. So I was like, oh, so that's not my mom being extra, that's my mom bringing like, you know, Filipino food up there, because where is it? It's not up there. I was like, oh, okay. So I always kind of like forget how privileged I am to live in an area where there is a lot of Filipinos, as opposed to like not just in the rural areas, but also like up north where there's also areas that are still in the cities, but there's not a large Filipino community. So just kind of like seeing Filipino culture and representation like in general kind of grow online is like has always been near and dear to my heart, because it means like it's representation that like other people who do not live in areas that have that community, they see that and they see that they're represented and they're not like, you know, alone. So oh yeah, for sure. I feel like my mom has taken us to like pretty much every single one of them. And it would be now that I would forget all of their names. But Angie's Bakery, that's pretty OG. What do we got? And well, actually no, I don't know. Angie's Bakery, I think that's like one of the newer ones. the one that I'm thinking of, I think it's like Laguna. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, so I'm not like just imagining that name. And then there's one that's like near Kung Fu Tea. Fellines, yeah. Love Fellines. Like you get a lot for like the amount that you're spending. Like you get a lot. Like they're not stingy with their portions. Oh yeah, oh they did?
Yeah, me and my partner went yesterday.
Good for them. I love that for them. Let's see, what else? There's another one. It starts with an M, and I think that one's in Chesapeake. Yeah, Maymar's. That one's really good. Let's see, where else? And then there's like one that's like, I think there's like one or two that's like right across from Regent University. Ihao. There we go. They're really good. I like them, and they have like a little like side store where like they have like all like the Filipino like sauces and stuff. So that's really, and the snacks. So like that's really cool. What other Filipino businesses do I know in the area? I think that might be all the ones that I know for sure, like off the top of my head. But like I know that there are way more than like just like the 5 that I rattled off the top of my head for sure.